It's Edge Radio Australia. Time for the Greater Wealth. Look at this massive room of people we have to comment on today's show. Tell you what, right now, we've got the tight shot going on. It's, of course, Derek Whittaker, the brains of the operation when it comes to all things money, wealth, and life purpose. Yeah.
Mate, you're a great facilitator of this. Thank you so much for what you do.
I've been called a lot of things. I'll take that. Great to have you here. We've had some information coming through. We're trying to make it all happen, actually, because some of this is on formats that aren't our normal kind of gigs. So bear with me. I'm going to hit some buttons and see what we can do. I see that we have Deploy there. Thank you very much for jumping on board. Very, very good to see you. And obviously, during the show, would welcome your comments. As we jump into things now, I'm going to go straight to you, though, mate, because today it's exposure. It's
all coming out with the United States DOGE organization, Department of General Efficiency. And what they've been finding in all the different government departments is freaking the left out.
Just a little bit. I think that you've put that beautifully.
That's the technical term.
You're freaking out, man. I mean, it's a bit like that, though. And that's kind of the behaviour. When we've seen so many of these senators and so forth, Congress people, getting out there and screaming their lungs out on the streets, it's like the Trump derangement syndrome is very, very real.
Well, last week we went through some of the numbers, and of course they're still coming out, more exposure as to what money, US public monies, was being spent on. I mean, get this, there's a whole list here. I can go through them. $10 million for Mozambique voluntary medical male circumcision, of all things. Sorry to hit that up right off the bat.
Oh, look.
It's just like, what? What has that got to do with helping people?
I think they should snip that from the budget. I couldn't help myself.
Let's cut that off right there. So then there was $9.7 million for the UC Berkeley to develop a cohort of Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills.
You need to read these things slowly because I don't speak woke. That's what? What?
A cohort of Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills for UC Berkeley to develop this.
Right. So, okay. So work skill for Cambodia. Gotcha. Okay. Right.
Talk about broad. $2.3 million for strengthening independent voices in Cambodia.
Right. Wow. Okay. I think
vocal lessons, singing lessons. I don't know.
Dead Kennedys had a song about that, but okay, it's a whole different thing. I think it was Dead Kennedys.
$32 million to the Prague Civil Society Centre.
Hang on.
Prague. Try to say that quickly. Prague.
I'm not even going to give it a go. One thing I have noticed, I don't notice any of these coming from actually inside the US.
Yeah.
The money's coming from there, but actually the courses and that sort of thing are very, very different indeed.
$40 million for Gender Equality and Women Empowerment Hub.
That's important. Focus. Man, I've never understood how to get government grants. And clearly what you need to do is I've got it. I've just worked it out. This is why Kamala was so successful. It's all about word salad.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you've got to do, right?
I'm looking at the big one here. $486 million to the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening, including $22 million for inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova and $21 million for voter turnout in India.
You've got to be kidding. That is a lot of money.
That's American money going to these countries.
I know.
They're not influencing the political situation there
not at all. No. Well, I've always found that America's very good at going and they liberate a lot of oil, okay? A lot of oil needs to be liberated. So they've been doing the Middle East for a long time. But this is great to see them moving into Asia. You're moving into all sorts of parts of the world.
Even $1.5 million in Liberia for voter confidence. And Mali, social cohesion, that needed $14 million. It's just crazy, the money that's being spent for stuff that could be interpreted 50 different ways.
Again, can you teach me how to write these quotes, basically? Oh, my word. These applications, this is unbelievable. These are just ear-bleeding amounts of money. I mean, as I said, hang on, what was the big one? The
$486 million. To the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening.
Oh, my word.
Including $22 million for inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova and $21 million for voter turnout in India. We just wanted to show up. $21 million.
We'll throw some money at you. That's in India. 22 mil is a lot of money, let's face it. G'day to Josh as well. So we've got some great people on board and looking forward to your questions and your comments. It should be a quieter show today without, of course, the Shave Monkey here. I'm sure he'll be here in spirit or he's watching in the background, and we'll see some comments from him very, very shortly. Shaq may actually arrive later on in the show as well, but we'll jump into this anyway. Now, I'm going to try and do something that I don't know how to do. I'm going to play a video here. Now, normally we save on the hard drive and all that kind of thing, and I can make that work. Okay, my limited IT.
Should we do the slides first?
Do you want to do the slides?
Let's do the slides first because this has to do with Doge.
Okay, all right.
Let's have a look at what Doge is still doing.
All right, let's do that then.
They've had attempts to get into the Treasury, and of course, the left have been trying to block them from doing that to kind of see where is the government money actually going. And they've thrown out lawsuits about that number of states going, hey, no. And then this has come up on X, which is really, really fascinating. Have a look at this. So this is a post that has gone out, and somebody said it would be great if Elon Musk could have a look inside Fort Knox just to make sure the 4,580 tons of US gold is there. Last time anyone looked was 50 years ago in 1974. Now have a look at the thread. Elon goes, of course, this is his platform.
Of course. Surely
it's reviewed at least every year. And they've responded it should be, but it isn't.
It isn't.
And so this is real power to the people. Wow. Somebody gets an idea. Hey, you should have a look at this. And with Elon given the access that he has with the government at the moment, he's going, actually, that's a great idea. Now, Fort Knox is supposedly where all the gold has been hidden for so long. But again, nobody really knows because it hasn't been audited in 50 years.
And it all comes back to the early 70s. My word, there was a lot going on. I mean, it wasn't just Watergate. Okay, we took off the gold standard. We've got, so much social policy that kind of destroyed the social fabric of the world, right? The early 70s, 72 to 75. I mean, I thought 72 was pretty good. Clearly, I was wrong. But so much went wrong there. It really did. And to think that they haven't counted the gold since then, wow. Okay, because it's funny because the IRS in the US and obviously the ATO here in Australia, I mean, they count my money every year. They make sure it's there, and of course, I've got Fort Knox kind of quantities of money in the couch, right? It is ridiculous not to actually pay attention to how much gold's there in 50 odd years. Crazy stuff.
Well, they've asked whether it's actually there. Now, what's fascinating about this? Let's skip down. Okay. There has been a lot of money, a lot of gold flying out of London to New York. And this is really, really interesting because about 8,000 gold bars have moved out of the Bank of England's vaults in the recent months. And they've been having a liquidity issue, investors calling on their gold, and they're like, all right, okay. Because all of that has to be tracked when you look at, of course, a vault. And everything's got its own serial number and it's stamped. That's the biggest process of that is actually tracking who owns what in those reserves. And the banks are in essence shorting the price of gold. It's come out. JP Morgan, HSBC, who have huge access to gold piles and supplies in London, what they'll often do is lend out bullion to borrowers who need to use it as collateral.
Okay.
Now, they charge interest for that, as loan banks do. And the banks are hedging against price decreases by selling gold futures in New York. So what they're doing is to counter what they're doing. So if it doesn't go the direction they want it to, they'll do a trade on the opposite side to hedge it off, all right? In February alone, JP Morgan Chase is estimated to deliver more than $4 billion in gold against futures contracts in New York, according to COMEX filings. This is huge because you'll remember that this is what's interesting, since the election day, basically US gold inventories have doubled.
Oh, really?
Since November.
Well, there's a lot more confidence in the US now. There's been a couple of changes. Don't know if you've noticed. Hey, comments come up from Deploy here. There we go. Now, sorry, the screen's just gone funny on us. 1 second. I thought it was known there was no gold after the French requested to see it.
Yeah. It's kind of a mystery, like where has the gold gone? That's kind of been one of the big rumors in the thing. Because remember, the US government actually banned people owning gold in the US at one point, and they had
in the 20s.
And they had to trade it in. And so there's always been this fear in the back of the mind of Americans that, they could confiscate my gold at any time. So I'm not surprised to hear that all this gold that's been stored in London is there now, and it's like, hey, we want to keep it there for safekeeping in case the US government wants to repeat history.
Well, it's 100 years ago, but I tell you right now, I mean, we're living in a period where history is being rewritten, and we're talking about before the early 70s taking the gold standard away. You know, gold is the fundamental; it's the base in so many ways of currency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. This is a little interesting fact that the cheapest way to get it across the Atlantic there, using the cargo holder commercial flights. And what they do, though, is they've got to recast the whole gold. So they got to, because COMEX contracts require different bar sizing.
Right.
So before it flies to the US, they've got to recast the whole thing. I mean, can you imagine the operations of 8,000 gold bars that have got to be recast?
You know what you need to do? Get it done at the Perth Mint, okay? Leave Mark McGowan in charge, okay? He will make sure it's just top quality.
Yeah.
It's no skimming.
This whole thing is really, really fascinating. There's a lot of speculation as to why the gold has to move. Why are they moving the gold?
Yep.
It looks like the banks are doing that sort of situation there.
So what are your thoughts? Why are they moving that gold?
I think, look, it comes down to who owns it. It appears, and I don't know, I don't have all the facts. This is the questions that we ask, but we don't know the answers. Why is that going on?
Well, it's important to ask questions.
It is. And I think it's because if these banks are doing that, they are having to hedge their bets as far as the market is concerned and lending that out. Okay. I also wondered, there's also lots of concerns in Americans' minds about the stability of the US dollar, given what's been going on with the BRICS nations across the world for the last few years in relation to doing business together, but also creating their own currency. Now, Trump's come down hard on that in his tweets or statements or truths or whatever they are on social media, and saying any nation that does this and tries to challenge the US dollar will have 100% tariffs on their products, etc. And you'll treat the USA that way. And so he's really doing trade wars, of course, by doing this. But gold's always nice to have back in the inventory as a backup. Oh,
no doubt about it. My thought was, honestly, if Trump had not won the election, I personally, and I mean, I'm certainly not the great grand sort of expert on this, but for what I was seeing with the BRICS nations, I thought there was a very, very real chance of the US dollar collapsing. I really did. I mean, to me, Trump was a great savior of that currency.
Yeah, I mean, everything's up in the air in relation to that. And of course, what you're seeing with the US, why they're doing this big audit is because they can't afford, they're racking up about like every 100 days, it's like $1 trillion worth of debt just to do this. That the military budget alone is just massive in the United States to keep that machine running.
Of course.
And now, because the previous administration printed 80% more in the money supply on the printing press of US dollars, inflation's gone through the roof. So they have got to find, where is the money going?
I've worked it out. I've just worked it out. I've got the answer. Honestly, do you know why America needed to print all those extra notes? For sniffing cocaine. I mean, when you've got Hunter in the White House, right? And the things I've been actually reading and listening to over the last couple of days, it sounds like Jill and Hunter were making all the decisions for the last few months. So, you know, who knows?
Well, we needed that $40 million for gender equality, women empowerment hub.
It's very important,
right?
Very important.
And the biodiversity conversation in Nepal, that cost $19 million as well. Aaron.
Easily. Josh has brought a great point about, let's face it, you know, why they're moving the gold. It's a very expensive shell game. That's exactly what it is. It really is, yeah.
I think what you got to realize too is that nations, when they start to see some sort of geopolitical unease, that they'll move their money. And so I won't say which. I was talking to a director of a very large bullion safe holding internationally.
Okay.
And
very cryptic.
He was telling me that, you know, he was dealing with some central banks.
Yep.
And because of the unrest that's going on in some parts of the world, central banks are moving their money. Because they don't want to have another foreign army come in and seize those gold and silver. Of course. So you have got to wonder behind the scenes, some of the information that isn't public that we don't know about, why are they moving the money out of London? I don't know. I'm not suggesting that London's being invaded by some nation, but obviously some form of instability or to cover some sort of position it's going on.
A couple of little points on that, okay, is obviously that's happened a lot in the Middle East for obvious reasons, okay? The unrest with Iran, the whole Palestinian situation there going on there. There's a lot of money and gold's been pulled out of there, I hear. I've got to have a strange point. You know how you said before, I'm being a bit of a conspiracy theorist here, right? But I just had this thought. Okay, remember the Iraq War 1, okay, like in the early 90s, went Kuwait and all of that, okay? If you remember, an awful lot of gold was lost, Okay, and there was movies made out of it, or Hollywood blockbusters, not going to carry on. But there was a big part of the story about the fact that the Americans had brought freedom to a lot of this gold and had left the Middle East. Now, when they haven't counted all of this gold in Fort Knox for such a long time, I wonder if there's actually more in there than they're supposed to be.
There could be. They
It's
could be
possible.
in for a surprise that there is more there, and that's a
You
very
never know.
valid suggestion. I think too, we don't know what happened with Trump's international in his first presidency, his first term.
Mhm.
He went and saw a lot of big players
Certainly
that
did.
had a lot of wealth held up. There are rumors that some of that money went to the United States. We don't know. We don't know, but
Well, it's good to see, Josh, you're an intelligent fella because you agree with me. So I think, no, it's a great point, mate. There's so much going on, but I don't, wake up every day and watch gold markets. You do,
not every morning, but
not
yeah.
every morning. 4 times a week. But it is a shell game, okay? And like the whole world, the financial world, you've got to look at the chess pieces moving, don't you?
Well, yeah, and you got to put 8,000 gold bars somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. They just can't be put down in the basement.
Yeah, my place is fine. Just offering. If you need a spot, I can help.
Yeah. So it's a storage issue too. When you move that amount of gold, they've
Yep.
got to smelt it. Where are you going to now put it? What kind of security measures are going to go into place? It's a great logistical problem to have.
Oh, it really is. Again, we'll just get Mark McGowan onto the job. He'll sort it out. He's the gold standard. We all know that. Oh, absolutely brilliant.
Let's have a look at, if we may, if we could, the suggestion here with Maxine Waters. It's really interesting what she's questioning in terms of the Federal Reserve. There's this little excerpt video that's been going on social media of late, but they've totally taken it out of context. And I want to put it back in context, if I may. You want to see if you can pull this up?
I'm going to put up my apologies first because I'm going to give it a go. I've never done this before. So normally the Shave Monkey looks after this department. So let's have a go. And hopefully you'll be able to see and share the screen and see what we're seeing. So let us know in the comment section there.
Let's have a crack at it.
I'll probably get advertised.
I wonder if we can do the audio. It'll go
Roger
through.
Cook thinks you need to be a
good
career
old Roger Cook
politician
talking.
to run the
Fantastic.
state and fix the challenges we're all facing.
When Musk comes knocking at the Fed's door, you gonna let him in?
I don't have anything for you on that.
Would you like to tell us today that you won't let Doge into the Federal Reserve or have access to the systems and the data?
So I don't have any, we've had no contact, and I don't really have, I have nothing for you to report today on that.
Well, you know what happened at Treasury, and you know what happened over at the CFPB, and the people of this country are being violated because all of our privacy is being taken up by Elon Musk and Trump, and we don't know what all they have on us, our bank accounts, everything that in our lives. So I want to protect it in the Fed. Mr. Powell, the last time you testified before this committee, you said, and I quote, really successful institutions in the United States generally are those that do a really good job on diversity and get the best out of people and attract a broad, diverse range of talents to the table. That is the way we feel about it. And at the Fed, and that is what we've been doing.
Okay, so having a look at that, a lot of people have been taking this out of context, saying, making a big deal about, we don't know what they're going to find and, what they have on us.
Did you know
And they've
you
been
can
saying,
use your super to invest in
Sorry,
property?
just
That's right.
there we go. Got
They've
rid of the
been
audio.
saying, she's saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
But if you look at this conversation, what I didn't realize was she was talking to the head of the Federal Reserve, which is the big bank of the United States.
Yeah, I didn't know that until you brought it up.
Jerome Powell. So you put it in context, you go, this is huge. This changes it slightly because you've got to remember that the Federal Reserve is an independent body. A lot of people think it's a government organization, but it's not. So it's been able to do what it wants to do in relation to running its banking affairs with, of course, the workings of its best customer is the United States government.
Of course.
Right. And so when she's saying this, he's going, look, you can hear his response there. We're not really answerable to Doge. We're not really answerable to the United States government. So we can pretty much do what we'd like. And I think this has been the big secret of the bankers for so long, but it's now coming to the forefront in terms of, hey, we are not a government institution. despite what you may think or how you're perceived. It's all coming out. And if it's not that, then American citizens who, most people are going, well, what are you and how do you relate to the whole system? And I think this is really, really pertinent at this time in history to see this come out.
Well, I'm going to do a little ad for you right now because, okay, this is the thing. Most people don't understand of the different systems. And the great thing, I've done a fantastic course, well, a couple actually, with Blue Sky Factory, and I did not know the separation between these two. It makes so much sense if you actually know those details. So if you are interested, look, get in touch with this fella. He knows his stuff. Know about the economies. And, you can actually improve your life so much. It's not just the knowledge of it. Quite frankly, when you know the rules of the game, you can certainly do a lot better out of it. So, blueskyfactory.com.au, I believe.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
No E in there, just blueskyfactory.com.au. All right. But brilliant. That is an important fact because most people think it's a government thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly did for most of my life.
So what you've got here, the other concern that they've got with Doge is that, okay, they've gone into USAID or USAID. They're going to be looking at the Department of Education. That's going to be a doozy when they open that one up because America has got one of the worst education systems. Their students are not learning, and they've known this for quite some time.
Yeah.
They rank really low in terms of other, Western nations.
Well, it keeps them controllable, doesn't it?
And then what they're doing, well, they know their rights and constitution, hopefully. It seems their parents do anyway. And then what's going on is you've got the situation where they are concerned that, are you going to let them in the waters or in the doors of the Federal Reserve? What's also going on is the IRS now. And will they be able to get, because Treasury, we don't want you in Treasury. So there's been lots of legal suits about that. But now they're knocking on the door of the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, which is like our Australian Taxation Office. Could you imagine the ATO being audited here in Australia?
Wow.
I mean, that's the impact of this, guys, and you've got to put it in your own context. But what's fun about this is a lot of other people are rising up and going, you know what? This accountability thing's great. Let's do it. Because I'm seeing social media stuff come out where Australians are doing audits on the Australian spending, public spending, and going, what? You mean you spent this on Afghanistan, this many billions of dollars? You spent this many billions in Iraq? Yeah, what is going on? I've said from day one, why are we spending so much money in Iraq? Not Iraq, sorry, in Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, the Ukraine thing, because Ukraine is basically what's Ukraine good for? It is the money laundering capital of the world, right? Okay, the sex trade capital of the world, the weapons trade center of the world, illegal weapons, that is. It has been doing that for a very long time. People like Zelensky, an actor, as we know, it's just I see no credibility in it whatsoever. I just think that they always seem to move from one part of the world to another. They place a conflict there. Again, it's just the money laundering. I mean, fundamentally, it's what I see. When I see us spending so much money in Ukraine, I've got to ask why. I mean, does this affect our lives? No. Our energy does not come from Ukraine. We don't buy any gas from there. I mean, what we do in Australia, of course, is give our gas away and the tax on that. We have no right to be involved in that war. And when it comes to NATO, we all know what NATO is doing, what it's really about now. So,
should Australia be involved in the Paris Climate Agreement, trade agreement?
No, absolutely not.
These kind of organizations, should Australia be involved with World Health Organizations? These are great questions to ask and need to, because you're working hard.
Yep.
And politicians are using your money for things that, are you really getting a direct benefit out of?
No. I mean, if you ordered anything, funny enough, on our social media for Edge, we've actually been having a bit of a conversation about this sort of thing. So a lot of info. Like I put a post up about the American, the income of the American Congress people, all that sort of carry on compared to their net worth. Right? Nancy Pelosi, $200,000 a year is her salary, but she's worth $202 million. I don't know. Get me that kind of financial plan, right? And a big list of them, and on both sides of politics, right? And somebody actually made the comment, I'd love to see that about the Australian politicians, right? And so would I. I mean, I know this. I know that in this state, in Western Australia, I know the net worth of Mark McGowan went up from just over $1 million when he took office to $13 million when he left. Wasn't that long, okay? Now, I know these aren't the huge numbers we're seeing in the US, but I can't make $1 million into $13 million in 6 years.
I've seen it done.
But not if you're a public servant.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, of course you can. I mean, you can make it like that on crypto. You can do all sorts of things. Yeah, but
I've seen those kind of numbers work. But,
yeah. But not if you're a public servant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I just say it's been crooked as they come. Comment that's just come in from Julie. Let's have a look at that. Here we go. Okay, we really need to get down and expose both parties for so much. Australia is a mess. We need reformation. Well, 100% agree with that. Australia is a mess. It is an absolute mess. Not even a hot one.
Well, I think Australia is not going to be exempt from the questions. I think
No.
we're going to see this more and more questions coming out as I think people see how long this has been going on in the US. I mean, for decades, you know, these public servants have been using. I mean, that's the question that's going to be, right? We're seeing what it's been spent on recently, and they're going to be asking, well, how long has this been actually going on? The system's not working anymore. I think we're already seeing the implications for Europe right now.
Yeah,
I mean, we saw the Vice President Vance go over there and ruffle feathers and leave one of them in tears, actually, one of their public servants in tears afterwards, a few days later, basically saying we don't share the same common values anymore.
No.
We are concerned that you are censoring free speech, and we have been funding that a lot in the United States. And for what? Because if we don't share that, then we are not sharing in the freedoms for people. And it's, you know, America right now is about America first. That's
Absolutely.
their foreign policy.
Why are you funding people who have fundamentally different ideals than you? It makes no sense. It's like the fact that we import people into this country who have completely different views to us. Like a couple of nurses that might have popped up over the last week or so, right? Now, this is not racism. It is a fact that if you want a cohesive society, bring people in from different types of backgrounds, but for goodness sake, right, share common values. Free speech being one of them, right? It just blows my mind.
And I think a lot of people don't realize the link between values and what they spend their money on. And that's huge, right? So how do I know what somebody's values are? I look at two things. I look at one, what they spend their money on,
Sure.
and two, whether they spend their time on.
Okay.
Those two factors will show you someone's values. So, you know, I go into someone's home and invite in their home, and you look at where their money is. What do they spend it on? You know, I've been in situations where the entertainment system is the biggest asset they've got in the house, right? Big TV.
You never went into my house. What are you talking about?
Yeah, there's some of these bachelors, you know, they just, that's what they're spending their time on. That's where they're spending their money. And you go, okay. And, you know, I've seen other things. One that's harder to judge now is books, right? Because everything's electronic these days. But if you saw somebody who had a big library, you go, okay, they value knowledge and wisdom and that sort of thing.
Great point.
But this is what the big conundrum here is, that people are going, this money has been spending in these areas and they don't align up with my values. And they're working hard to earn a crust, which is being taken from them and spent on stuff that they don't agree with.
100%. Completely agree. You know, we I mean, in this country, we literally, we're paying people to have multiple wives, right? It's ridiculous, right? That is not our, you know what? We're a country that was built on Christian values. That shouldn't be happening, right? We shouldn't be funding wars that are against our beliefs, or again, as I say, I'm using that as an example because it's come up a lot lately, right? But we're a Christian country fundamentally. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, that's the be all and end all. I like different cultures. But, you know, if it's the basis of what we are, okay, then we should be running with that. We want Australia or any part of the world, Italy, you know, France, UK, to have its culture. Okay, that's why we go there. It's why we get on a plane and fly across the world. Oh, why would I go to the UK now? Because the UK is not the UK anymore. Everybody I know who's you know, English or for any part of that world tells me, just don't bother anymore, Aaron. It is a complete wasteland of what it once was, and it does not represent our values anymore. We need to hold on to that. It's very, very important. And you're right. And we can choose by the things we buy and the time that we spend. I mean, I feel very, very strongly about a lot of these things. And if I find a company doesn't align with my values, I go out of my way not to spend money with them.
Oh, look, I'm trying a new car mechanic from tomorrow.
Right.
Rang them to try to change the appointment. We've come to an arrangement, but poor communication. I mean, I do. One of my pet hates, you're in the car world type things, is that when a mechanic makes you feel like you're an inconvenience for calling them and disrupting what they're doing. I'm like, dude, I'm the customer and I'm lining up to spend you tons of money, and you're acting like I'm inconveniencing you. Like, come on. Yeah. And you want my loyalty?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an industry where you do get a lot of loyalty. You find a good tradesman and you stay with them, right?
That's right.
We'll talk afterwards. I've got a better one for you. But anyway, it might sound like it's a long way from, the finance and politics, but it's really not. Again, it's about you making the decisions in your everyday life about your own values.
Absolutely. So I bring it to this point. This exposure is fantastic. This exposure is going to lead to accountability. It's already shaking a lot of people up. I'm seeing some people, videos and that of them melting down going, I cannot believe that this is the United States. I cannot believe that this has been going on in my country for a long time. And I think the most compassionate response that we can have is not, I told you so, although there's part of us that would probably love to say that in some circumstances.
There's a very large part of me wants to say I told you so.
But think about it for a minute. If your entire world has been rattled, that things that you thought were going on that were totally legit in a belief system that you really identified with, and now that world has been totally rocked, where does that put you? You've got to now have new paradigms, new shifts, and a lot of people are in shock about that.
Oh, look, they're shocked about the media, all right? I mean, we look at what the media, we had a conversation earlier about, I went to an incredibly great documentary last Wednesday, which was it was COVID 1984, the Western Australian experiment. And it was amazing to watch what went on in Perth in that period. And just for a little bit of a giggle, I decided to go and Google it. So I Googled what happened in Perth in those particular times. And guess what? No mention of it. No mention of 60-odd thousand people gathered in the middle of Perth. No mention of the fact that these are the biggest protests since the Vietnam War.
Well, it wasn't even covered at that time by the press either. So that's probably why it's not showing up, because the mainstream media just ignored it.
Well, and I believe it's also they're trying to wash it from the past. Exactly. Yeah. So, look, you're right. We look at everything. We look at, as I say, whether it's finance, we look at media, we look at all of these different parts of life, and we think how much of history has just been invented.
Yeah. How much of it was a lie? And so I think that's the big thing we've got to watch in terms of these unravelings, and when these exposures come, is having compassion for people and going, because some people were genuinely deceived and thought they were doing actions that were in the best interest of themselves and their families and that sort of stuff.
Well, yeah, okay. You look at say Tulsi Gabbard, right? Okay, who signed up after 9/11. All right, for God and country, going there, doing the right thing, trying to protect your nation. And we're sort of seeing through information that's coming out left, right, and centre. I'll tell you right now, it's looking a little JFK-like, isn't it? Yeah. Really? It really is. And that's something that's been admitted just in the last few days. It definitely was at least 2 gunmen, all of that. How much of this is real?
Yeah.
And you're talking about the gold moving around, things like that. This is manipulation of markets. This is a big game of chess.
Well, we don't know why it's happening.
Well, I know. I'm not suggesting that's it, but I'm saying that there is manipulation.
It's things that make you go, why is that being moved around so much at that level? Because, you got to remember, one gold bar is about $150,000 Australian these days.
Okay.
So 8,000 of them moving around.
There's a few.
That's
There's a bit of
$1
cash.
or $2. Yeah.
Exactly right. As I say, store it in my place. I'm happy with it. Oh, dear.
What's Julie say?
Now, I brought Julie's comment up before, but let's bring it up on the big screen so we can actually read it again. There we go. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Go on.
And Julie's got a great point there. We need to get down and exposed by parties for so much. We have got an election coming up, and I think we really need to have accountability. We need to, really think hard who we want in power. I feel like some people don't feel like they really have an opposition that represents their values. So that is a tricky one, because it's always been 2-party kind of elections with a few independents and smaller parties straggling along for the mix and the balance of power. I think they have seen in the last election, the federal one at least, we saw the independents rise up and form their own coalition, so to speak, in relation to, hey, we're that independent voice that you don't normally have. Well, and I think that's going to get some of the limelight in this next election.
Yeah, worthy of mention on that one. Look, there are 5 upper house seats in Western Australia that are up for grabs, because of the way that McGowan tried to screw the system, quite frankly, moving things around, and it might actually backfire. Let's hope it does. So what is wonderful is a lot of independents have got together and they're actually working together, and they've put together a preference sort of situation where they can try to make the most of it. That is fantastic. That's true democracy when you've got independents working together. The 2-party preferred system is an absolute. Look, Josh just brought up a great point. Liberal, Labor, and the Greens are all WEF stooges, 100%. But again, this is at the time where I always bring up my personal opinion, and I don't care. There's absolutely zero level of journalism about this. This is Labor and Greens are socialists, and we need to stop them from damaging our country. No, not damaging, destroying our country. They are the absolute worst. Liberal ain't much better, make no mistake. And I don't want. Here's the problem: we get to this election. Do we vote for the one that's just does least damage? Like, this is crazy.
I think a lot of people do try to vote that way.
Yeah.
It's been interesting to hear the feedback from Shaquille. What he said on another show in Australia is basically, let's encourage people to vote for not any of the major parties, but for independents and smaller parties,
Totally.
so that the major parties don't get that $3 that they're expecting.
Oh, look, it's getting up there.
And
it's almost $4.
Yeah, it's like people are going, hang on a second. The political parties are going, well, can you stop talking about that, please? Because
well,
it's not in our interest that happens out.
Great point. The video we put on earlier, right? What happens? Roger Crook comes up. Okay, there's one of his ads. I cannot turn on anything, any electronic media whatsoever. And as I say, I don't watch free-to-air TV. I don't watch the propaganda. But if it's on any of YouTube or Rumble or Facebook or any socials, okay. What am I getting every 2 minutes? Oh, Roger Crook. Okay. And as I say, I've met the man. I find him without doubt the weakest person that I've dealt with in many years. Just a walking, talking, just wet fish handshake. Like there is just no backbone to the man. And he should not be leading our state. Now, what's the problem that we've got right now? I say that, and means that Edge will never, ever get an interview with or any support from the Labor Party. But we don't have a genuine opposition here in Western Australia at the moment. So we have to go hard on the independents.
The people have to be the opposition.
Yeah.
When I saw in Western Australia the landslide to the Labor Party, I said to Christy, my wife, I said, listen, the people are going to have to be the opposition now because there isn't any to represent them.
Mm-hmm. Josh brings a fantastic point here. There are a couple of good eggs in the Liberal Party. I thoroughly agree with you and very happy to promote those people, but not enough to make them worth voting for unless those specific good eggs are in your electorate. And agreed.
That's a good point.
Ultimately, Liberal or Labor are going to get into power. We know that. But ultimately, if we can have the balance of power rather in the upper house, that's a very, 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 very strong thing for independents to be sitting there. And the other thing is to defund them. Okay, so yes, do not put them first on the ballot, push them down a little bit, or not a little bit, all the way. I don't even want to write them on the piece of paper.
I mean, elections are won for a lot of part in terms of either they like the leader or they don't like the leader.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's a protest vote.
Oh,
we saw that in the last federal elections.
Sure
A lot of people didn't like Scott Morrison, so who do they put in? Albanese is a bit of a protest. Sometimes it's a favourite in terms of, we like so-and-so better in terms of their personality. There are some smooth talkers that have come out of the World Economic Forum, right? And you've got to look past the persona, the personality. You've got to look at what is our values that they really, this is what we keep coming back to.
100%.
What are their values, guys? Because whatever their values are is how they're that's going to determine the behavior. And I think we've got to see the link here. We've got to look deeper than just what is said. It's like there's some politicians that, people say, I can't stand what they stand, how they say things. Trump, for example. And I always said to people, forget about what he says. Look at what he does. Look at his actions, because that's determining his values. Now he's the most popular guy around. Even before his first presidency, he's just soared in the opinion polls, particularly with what he's done in the last first 4 weeks of his office.
You stole that information clean out of my head. I was literally going to be saying that because I was completely anti-Trump. 2015, I thought he was just, a bit of a deplorable human being, to be honest with you. I hated the way he said all of that. The rhetoric was just it was a mess, right? In my opinion. But also a lot of it was me being programmed and seeing this on the media being pushed down my throat about how bad he is.
Most of us didn't know how bad politics was, that the deep state was actually there. There were these powers that were misusing funds so much, and now it's all coming out.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And now that we've learned that, we see things differently. I mean, I'm watching every single day. I watched, the West Australian, the Kitty Litter Times, okay, here in Western Australia. Yes, to say you wouldn't line your cat's basket with it, right? It's the Kitty Litter Times is an atrocious thing, and every single day I read nothing but propaganda in it, and it's laughable. And I love the fact that on social media everybody gets after it and just rips into them now, and that is fantastic. That's the power of the people. Social media. This is why it's so damn important. what we and other independent media, why it's so damn important to actually, support all of us. As I say, I went to an event the other day, that was Scorpion Media. It's Courage is a Cure. Great people like that are doing really wonderful work. Support them.
Well, people aren't following mainstream media in the United States
No.
like they used to. I mean, we're seeing that crumble as far as the power that CNN once had. They had to scrap so many staff. A lot of their anchors have had to take pay cuts, big pay cuts. A lot of them have resigned, left, all that sort of stuff. It's a big shakeup for a lot of these news media organizations. Even the Trump administration has said we'll leave seats open for independent media people to come in now.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we have independent media says something too.
Says everything.
It says to me that, they're not happy with the discourse that's been broadcast and blasted out for so long, and they want to get to the bottom of what the actual truth is.
Look at what Rachel Maddow, what she said the other day, okay, about the whole Tesla thing with the Cybertrucks, and basically that, that Elon Musk being so close to President Trump that he got a $400 million contract, all of that, right? Absolutely pushed it as jobs for mates, right? And we do know that politicians love jobs for mates, but she didn't even do a research, right? She didn't do any research to realize, hang on, that government contract was put in place under Biden. Right now, if a person like that had that power, she used to be paid $30 million. Used to be, I believe she's getting paid $13 million now. Okay, that's a lot of power. It was a lot of power.
Yep.
And now no one listens to her because she's got no credibility. Only the hardcore ones, only the ones who are so have the old derangement syndrome so strong.
Aaron, they had to read the script.
Yeah.
They had to read the script
Sure.
to keep their jobs. Or they thought so in their minds. The one that didn't was Tucker Carlson.
man.
And of course, he's now gone to independent media.
Of course he has,
right?
absolutely.
And his following went with him
Yeah.
because they believed he had credibility. He was one who was going to align himself with their values, which was speaking and reporting on the truth.
Correct.
And I think this is the problem that they've had, is that media has become so infiltrated. There's an old line in media: "Do not bite the hand that feeds you." Right? Of course, look at who's now. We've got Robert Kennedy coming in and saying we should have no more advertising of pharmaceutical companies on free-to-air television.
Well, then they'll go bankrupt.
And they applauded it big time, the audience.
Yeah.
But you know what? Guess who's been pushing the narrative for so long?
Right. As I say, and I know from absolute personal experience here in Western Australia that some of the media entities in WA have got, and I don't know all the figures, but the ones that I've been involved with, sometimes their actual income, 70% of their income comes from government. Okay, that means the government controls the narrative. They own the station. That's really what it means. And I want people to know it's not new, right? Okay, back all of the years ago when I was doing a lot of entertainment stuff in the 90s and early 2000s in radio, and as I say, entertainment, not news. The control and the influence that they tried to wield upon the entertainment side to push narratives. And that's, it's a long time ago now. And it just got to the point where I just went, no, I don't want to be part of this.
Media has to be the voice of the people. That's what it's traditionally supposed to,
Exactly
who
right.
it's supposed to represent.
Exactly right. We'll come to that point, mate. We're going to end the show, but I would love to get your final thoughts as we,
Identify your values. What are your values? What are you spending your money on? What are you spending your time on? And then ask yourself, where do I align my values and who do I align my values with?
Okay.
Because I think that's a really good understanding then of understanding other people's behaviors. When somebody does something wild and you think, well, what's going on there? Why are they behaving in such a certain way?
Sure.
Or why are they spending that crazy amount of money on that sort of thing? It will help you understand, but it'll also refine your own budgets and your own expenditure too, and go, well, why am I spending money on X, Y, Z? I had one of my clients recently discover they had about $32,000 a year going out to subscriptions they weren't aware of.
They weren't aware of. Why don't I have problems like that?
Right. And
Jeez.
I gave them a budget template.
Yep.
And they discovered that. And now they've got more money than they realized they actually had by going cancel. So it's good to go back, have a look, because some of your values are going to change as you get older as well. And I think it's important to identify that and go, is this really serving me anymore? Is this really what I want? And is this the direction that I'm going?
Yeah. Is this really who I am, or am I doing this to impress others, which is the biggest thing, let's face it, especially in the world we live in right now. Instagram, everybody with a filter and a fake this and a fake that. hiring a nice car to stand in front of a nice car. Like, people are doing this.
Yeah.
People are hiring Lamborghinis to get their picture taken. Like, really?
Yeah.
Getalife.com, right? That's what I think on that one. Anyway, not that I wouldn't mind a Lamborghini if anyone's offering, but that's a whole
Stick
other.
to your 8,000 gold bars, mate.
Oh, that's right. Just become such a consumer. All right, we are out of here. Thank you very much for being part of the greater wealth here at Edge Radio Australia.